I found out my boyfriend was getting married by accident. Not to me. 3 days ago, I was sitting on the edge of our couch, laptop balanced on my knees, staring at a folder I'd created and couldn't bring myself to close. Screenshots, emails, registries, proof. The kind that doesn't fade no matter how many times you blink or tell yourself there has to be another explanation. My brain kept insisting this couldn't be real, that after 4 years together, 4 years of shared rent, shared routines, shared plans, there had to be some misunderstanding. But the evidence sat there, neat and merciless, mocking me with timestamps and confirmations. I'm 27. I've been with my boyfriend for 4 years. We've lived together for 2. We talked about marriage like it was a matter of when, not if. Kids, houses, the boring, beautiful future people build quietly. I thought we were solid. Not perfect, but real. He works in IT. I work in event planning. We split everything 50-50. Bills, groceries, date nights, normal life. And yet in less than a week, my entire reality cracked open. It started small, too small to accuse, too unsettling to ignore. He wasn't distant, exactly, just distracted. Phone always in his hand, calls taken in the other room, smiles that didn't reach his eyes when I walked in. When I asked, he said work was insane, wedding season, deadlines, stress. That explanation made sense. Until his friend, someone we'd both known for years, mentioned he was getting married. Out of nowhere. No girlfriend I'd ever heard about. No engagement announcement. Just a wedding in 3 weeks. Something in my chest tightened that day. I didn't know why yet. I only knew it felt wrong. Now the wedding is 2 days away. I'm not invited, but I'm going. Not to sit quietly in the back. Not to watch him promise his life to someone else. I printed every screenshot, every text, every confirmation that proves what they did. They thought they were careful. They thought I'd never find out. They were wrong. And in 48 hours, when the officiant asks if anyone objects, I won't stay silent. We didn't meet in some dramatic, movie-worthy way. No sparks flying across a crowded room. No spilled drinks or destiny moments. We met through mutual friends at a casual get-together, one of those evenings that wasn't supposed to matter. I remember standing in the kitchen, plastic cup in my hand, half listening to a conversation about work, when he stepped beside me and asked if the chips were stale. They were. We laughed, and just like that, he stayed. He was easy to talk to in a way that felt rare, calm, grounded, the kind of man who listened instead of waiting for his turn to speak. I'd just started working in event planning back then. Long hours, unpredictable schedules, constant pressure to be perfect for other people's biggest days. He was in IT, structured, logical, steady. Where my life was chaos and deadlines, his was order and problem solving. It felt like balance. We started dating slowly. Coffee after work, late night takeout on my couch, weekend walks that turned into dinners, that turned into mornings together. He never rushed me, never pushed. When he said he liked me, it felt deliberate, thought through, real. After a year, we moved in together. A small apartment, nothing fancy, but it was ours. We argued over furniture and laughed about it later. Split rent evenly. Built routines without even noticing. Sunday grocery runs, midweek laundry, quiet nights where we sat next to each other doing completely different things, comfortable in the silence. People always say the first year of living together shows you who someone really is. And what I saw felt safe. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't overly romantic. But he showed up, fixed things without being asked, remembered the small details. Texted me when he knew my event days were especially brutal. You've got this. Proud of you. We talked about marriage the way people do when they assume it's inevitable. Not proposals or dates, just future language. When we have kids, our house, one day. I planned weddings for a living, and sometimes he'd joke, "Guess I don't need to worry about planning ours." I'd smile and say, "You'll still have to show up." And he'd grin back like that was a promise. Looking back now, I replay moments I thought were solid. Holidays with friends, birthdays, late-night conversations about life goals, and I try to pinpoint where the lie began. But that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't announce itself. It blends in. At some point, his world quietly split in two, and I had no idea I was living in only one half of it. 6 weeks before everything blew up, nothing seemed wrong. We were still sharing a bed, still splitting bills, still talking about mundane things like grocery prices and gym memberships. If someone had asked me then if I trusted him, I would have said yes without hesitation. That's what hurts the most. Not that he lied, but how easily he fit the lie into our life. How naturally he kissed my forehead at night while building another future somewhere else. How comfortable he was letting me plan other people's weddings while secretly planning his own with someone else. I thought I knew the man I was building a life with. I had no idea I was just one version of the story he was telling. The first signs didn't feel like red flags. They felt like static, little disturbances in an otherwise familiar rhythm, easy to ignore if you weren't actively looking for them. And I wasn't. When you trust someone, your brain works overtime to protect that trust. It started with his phone, not in an obvious way. No frantic hiding, no sudden passwords, just a subtle shift. He checked it more often, smiled at the screen in this quiet, private way that used to be reserved for me. When a notification popped up, he'd tilt the phone slightly away, not enough to seem defensive, just enough to register. I noticed. I told myself it was work. Then there were the calls, short, frequent, always taken in the other room. He'd lower his voice, turn his back, close the door just enough to muffle sound. If I asked who it was, he'd say a name from work or shrug it off entirely. Just stuff. Nothing important. I wanted to believe him. About 6 weeks before the wedding I didn't know existed, he mentioned he was going to the gym more seriously. New schedule, early mornings, late evenings. I teased him about suddenly becoming disciplined. He laughed, kissed my cheek, said he wanted to feel better about himself. Then came the new clothes. A few nicer shirts, shoes he didn't need. And one night, I found lingerie bags in our closet, not mine. When I asked, he said they were a gift. For me, for later. Later never came. 2 weeks after that, my friend, the one he'd known since college, called to tell me he was getting married. I remember standing in our kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the sink. Married? I repeated. To who? He dodged the question. Said it was complicated, low-key, private. You'll meet her at the wedding. When I hung up, my boyfriend was sitting on the couch, watching me too closely. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, I said automatically. Just surprised. That night, he told me something that made my stomach tighten for reasons I couldn't explain yet. Oh, by the way, he said casually, I'm working that wedding. I blinked. You are? Yeah, same day. Small world, right? My mind scrambled to keep up. He worked in IT. He didn't work weddings. Not like that. But before I could press, he was already talking about something else. From there, the inconsistencies piled up. He'd leave at odd hours. Say he was running errands that took far too long. I'd catch glimpses of texts that ended abruptly when I entered the room. He smiled at his phone the way people do when they feel chosen. The way he used to smile at me. One night I asked about the venue he was supposedly working at. He paused, just for a second, long enough. That boutique place downtown, near the river. Which one? I asked. You wouldn't know it. It's new. I work in event planning. I know every venue. That was the moment something shifted in me. Not panic, awareness. A quiet, creeping realization that I wasn't being told the whole truth, and that whatever he was hiding was already much bigger than I was prepared for. The night everything collapsed wasn't dramatic. There was no argument, no confrontation, no instinct screaming at me to look closer. It was quiet. He was in the shower. The sound of water hitting tile filled the apartment, steady and familiar. The same sound I'd fallen asleep to countless nights. I was walking past his desk when I noticed his laptop was still open. I wasn't snooping. That matters to me. Then an email notification slid across the screen. Wedding Registry. Final changes approved. My stomach dropped so hard I had to grab the chair to keep myself from falling. For a second, I told myself it had to be work. A forwarded email. A client mistake. I clicked before my brain could stop me. The page loaded slowly, painfully, and then I saw the names. The groom, my boyfriend, and the bride, my friend. Not a planner, not a coordinator, not a placeholder. The bride. My hands started shaking so badly I had to sit down. The registry items blurred together. Dishes, bedding, kitchen appliances, things couples buy when they're building a life. One item had been purchased by her mom, another by his brother. This wasn't fake. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was real. The shower was still running, steam creeping under the bathroom door. My heart was pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I stared at the screen for what felt like 20 minutes, waiting for something, anything, to explain this away. Nothing did. So I started digging. Not out of jealousy, out of survival. Venue booking confirmations with his email listed as the primary contact. Emails between him and the venue discussing menu options. sent on the same day he told me he was stuck in meetings. Texts between her and his sister about bridesmaid dresses. A family group chat labeled rehearsal dinner. 8 months. 8 months of messages. 8 months of planning a wedding, their wedding, while he came home to me every night. Something in my brain broke, not in anger yet, but in disbelief, like my reality had glitched and no one else had noticed. I screenshot everything. Registry, emails, texts, confirmations. Downloaded it all. Backed it up to a flash drive. Cleared the browser history afterward, my hands shaking as I moved on instinct alone. When he came out of the bathroom, towel around his waist, he smiled at me, like nothing in the world had changed. "You okay?" he asked. "You look pale." "Yeah," I said, forcing my voice steady. "Just tired. Long day." He kissed my forehead. "Get some rest, babe. Love you." "Love you," I said back. The words tasted like ash. For the next 3 days, I lived on autopilot. I went to work, came home, acted normal. Watched him text constantly, now knowing exactly who he was texting. Every errand, every late night, every excuse snapped into place with sickening clarity. The wedding was Saturday, 2 days away. I wasn't invited. So I bought a dress, printed every screenshot, and decided that if my boyfriend and my friend thought they could build a life together behind my back, they were about to learn what consequences look like. The first thing I noticed after the shock wore off wasn't rage. It was silence. Not the quiet of peace, but the heavy, suffocating kind that presses against your chest and makes every breath feel deliberate. I moved through the next few days like a ghost in my own life, doing everything I normally did while feeling completely detached from it. I went to work, answered emails, smiled at clients, planned other people's perfect moments while knowing mine had already been dismantled. At home, nothing changed on the surface. He still came back in the evenings, still dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, still asked what I wanted for dinner, still crawled into bed beside me, like he hadn't just erased 4 years of our life without my consent. Every time he touched me, my skin tightened. Every time he said my name, it felt foreign, like he was reading lines from a script meant for someone else. I watched him carefully now, not suspiciously, clinically. When his phone lit up and he smiled, I knew exactly who it was. When he said he was running errands, I pictured them together, planning table arrangements, tasting cake, laughing about details that used to belong to us. When he complained about being tired, I knew it wasn't from work. It was from living 2 lives. I didn't confront him, not because I was afraid, because I needed control. At night, when he fell asleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying moments from the past year with brutal clarity, conversations that suddenly made sense, excuses that now sounded rehearsed, times my friend had canceled plans last minute, times he'd encouraged me not to overthink. "You're imagining things, you're stressed, you trust me, right?" The audacity of it made my jaw clench in the dark. I thought about leaving, packing a bag, walking out while he was at work, disappearing quietly, preserving my dignity. But every time that thought surfaced, something colder followed it. They were about to stand in front of people who loved them, people who trusted them, and lie. They were about to rewrite the truth with vows. And I was expected to vanish politely so they could have their moment. No. I started preparing, not emotionally, but practically. I printed everything again, organized the screenshots in order, highlighted dates, labeled files. I bought a folder thick enough to hold the weight of 8 months of deception. I practiced my breathing, slow, controlled. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't doing this for revenge. I was doing it because silence would make me complicit. The night before the wedding, he kissed me goodnight and told me he had to be at the venue early. I nodded, wished him luck, watched him turn off the light. I lay there afterward, heart pounding, hands steady for the first time since I'd found out. They thought I was oblivious. They thought I was weak. They thought the worst thing I could do was leave. They had no idea what I was about to do. Saturday morning arrived too quickly. I woke before my alarm, heart already racing, the room still dim with early light. His side of the bed was empty. He'd told me the night before he needed to be at the venue early for setup. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet, letting it settle into my bones. This was it. I showered, dressed carefully, deliberately. I chose a stunning dress, not to make a statement, but because I needed armor. I slid the folder into my bag, checked it twice. Screenshots, emails, registry pages. 8 months of lies reduced to paper and ink. The drive to the venue felt unreal, like I was watching myself from the outside. My hands were steady on the wheel, Whatever fear I'd felt earlier in the week had hardened into resolve. The venue was an upscale garden space, white chairs arranged in perfect rows, flowers everywhere, sunlight filtering through arches. Beautiful, almost cruelly so. I arrived 15 minutes before the ceremony. Guests milled around, chatting, laughing, adjusting outfits. No one questioned me. Weddings are chaotic. One extra person in formal wear doesn't raise alarms. I took a seat near the back and waited. At 2:58 p.m., the music started. Everyone stood. And then I saw her, my friend, walking down the aisle in a white dress, smiling like this was the happiest day of her life. At the altar stood my boyfriend, the groom. My vision went fuzzy for a second. I'd prepared for this, but seeing him look at her like that hit harder than expected. The officiant began. Familiar words, sacred words meant to mark truth. I waited. If anyone objects to this union, the officiant said, speak now or forever hold your peace. The adrenaline didn't fade right away. It carried me out of the venue, across the gravel path, past the flower arrangements that were still perfect and untouched, as if nothing had just imploded inside. Only when the doors closed behind me did my body finally remember what had happened. My hands started shaking. Not dramatically, not enough for anyone to notice. Just enough that I had to sit down on a low stone wall and press my palms against my thighs to steady them. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might bruise my ribs from the inside. I hadn't cried yet. That scared me more than the anger. A voice behind me said my name. I looked up and saw his brother standing a few feet away, shock written all over his face. He glanced from me to the venue doors, then back again, like he was still trying to piece together what he'd just witnessed. Holy... He stopped himself. I had no idea. None of us did. I nodded once. I believed him. The look on his face wasn't guilt. It was devastation. He told us he was single, the brother said quietly, for years. Said he'd been on his own for a long time. I let out a slow breath. Yeah, that sounds like him. He ran a hand through his hair. We never questioned it. He kept his life private. We thought this was just how he was. Behind us, raised voices spilled out of the building. Even from outside, I could hear it. My friend's sharp, furious tone, his defensive edge, the sound of two people arguing, not about betrayal, but about being caught. She knew about me, I said quietly. The brother stiffened. What? She knew he was living with me. She knew we were together. She just didn't care. His jaw clenched. Jesus. Yeah. He looked genuinely sick now. Do you want to get out of here? He asked after a moment. Get a drink or something. You look like you could use one. I almost laughed at the understatement. I really could. We left. The ceremony did not continue. At the bar down the road, he wasn't alone. His cousin showed up. Then two of his friends. One by one, people who had been guests at the wedding. That never was sat down across from me, all wearing the same stunned expression. He always said he was single, one of them muttered. Just focused on work. Apparently, I said, staring into my glass. That was part of the strategy. They apologized, over and over. Told me they would back me up if I needed witnesses, told me he'd been evasive for months, never posting about his personal life, never bringing a partner to family events, always keeping things compartmentalized. Now they understood why. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again, and again. Missed calls, messages, notifications stacking endlessly. His name, her name, mutual friends. I turned the phone face down. I can't go back to the apartment tonight, I said quietly. His brother didn't hesitate. You shouldn't. Stay at my place. Guest room's yours as long as you need. Something in my chest cracked at that, being offered safety by the family of the man who had just destroyed my life. Thank you, I said, meaning it more than words could carry. That night, lying alone in a strange bed, the silence finally caught up with me. The shock wore off. The questions rushed in. How long had he been lying to everyone? How easily had my friend chosen convenience over conscience? How many moments I thought were real had been calculated? I stared at the ceiling, heart heavy, finally letting the truth settle in. I hadn't just lost a relationship. I had lost my sense of reality, and I was only just beginning to understand how deep the damage went. I stood. I object. Silence dropped over the ceremony. My friend turned around, color draining from her face. My boyfriend froze, eyes wide, mouth opening without sound. I walked down the aisle calmly, folder in hand. Sorry to interrupt, I said evenly, but I think the guests deserve some context before this continues. The officiant looked panicked. Ma'am, this is highly irregular. Oh, it gets more irregular, I said, opening the folder. I held up the first screenshot. The groom has been living with me for 2 years. We've been together for 4. He told me he was working this wedding, not starring in it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My friend grabbed his arm. Don't listen to her, she said sharply. She's crazy. Crazy, I repeated calmly, pulling out another page. These are texts between the bride and groom from 3 months ago. Can't wait to marry you. Counting down the days, sent while he was sleeping in my bed. Someone whispered, "Oh my God." My boyfriend stepped forward. You need to leave, he said. Right now. I laughed once. You've eaten dinner at my apartment. You met my parents. And you're marrying my friend. He looked away. It's complicated. It's really not, I said, flipping to the registry. Here's the registry you made together. Dishes, towels, a mixer. Building a life, while you were building another one with me. I turned to the guests. Show of hands, who here knew he had a girlfriend? No one raised their hand. So he lied to all of you too. My friend's mother stood. This is ridiculous. If he was with you, why would he marry her? That, I said, meeting her gaze, is exactly what I'd like an answer to. The crowd buzzed. Phones came out. The officiant tried to regain control. Perhaps we should pause? Oh, we're past pausing, I said, pulling out another email. This was sent 2 weeks ago. Menu options discussed. On the same day, he told me he was at a work conference. My boyfriend's jaw tightened. His shoulders went rigid, like something inside him had finally given up pretending. He dragged a hand down his face, exhaled sharply, then laughed once. Short, bitter. Fine, he said, voice flat. Yes, I was with both of you. Happy now? The crowd erupted. But I love her, he added, gesturing toward the bride. You were just safe. A backup plan. A backup plan. 4 years. I nodded slowly. Good to know. I closed the folder and turned to leave. Behind me, voices rose. Accusations, denials, chaos. As I walked out, I heard her screaming at him about promises he'd made. Heard him snap back that she'd sworn no one would find out. Outside, my legs finally started shaking. But my spine stayed straight. The turning point didn't come with closure. It came with a locked door. The morning after the wedding, that never was, his brother drove me back to the apartment. I barely spoke the entire way. My body felt hollow, like everything vital had been scooped out and replaced with weight. The building looked the same. Too normal, too calm. I stood in front of the door for a second before trying my key. It didn't work. I tried again. Slower this time. Same result. That's when it hit me. I knocked. After a moment, the door opened. He stood there. My boyfriend. The man who had stood at the altar the day before. What are you doing here? He snapped. I live here, I said calmly. I need to get my things. He laughed, sharp and humorless. After what you pulled, you humiliated us. You don't get anything. Leave, or I'm calling the police. Something cold settled in my chest. I'm on the lease, I said. You can't lock me out. He smirked. Watch me. That was the moment something inside me hardened. Not emotionally. Legally. I stepped back and called the landlord. I didn't mention the wedding. I didn't explain the betrayal. I stated facts only. Breakup, unauthorized lock change, lease violation. The landlord was furious. The lease was clear. No lock changes without approval. He met us there within the hour. When the door was opened with the master key, my boyfriend exploded. This is insane! She doesn't live here anymore! The landlord didn't raise his voice. Both names are on the lease. You cannot deny her access. Then he tried it. She's abusive, he said suddenly. She's been harassing us. The brother immediately lifted his phone and started recording. For the record, he said evenly, we're here peacefully so she can collect her belongings. It took 2 hours. 2 long, humiliating hours. I packed while he followed me around, throwing comments like he needed them to stay upright. Taking your little laptop? What, going to cry online some more? No wonder she was better than you. You were always boring. I didn't respond. I kept packing. That's when I found the damage. My things weren't just moved. They were destroyed. Electronics smashed. Headphones snapped clean in half. A leather jacket my dad gave me, cut straight through with scissors. The landlord saw everything. That's destruction of property, he said flatly. Prove it, my boyfriend scoffed. You were standing next to the damaged items, the landlord replied, and admitting they belonged to her. That's sufficient. Photos were taken, documentation recorded. The next day I filed a police report. Not because I wanted revenge, because I needed a paper trail. That was the moment I finally understood something crucial. This wasn't just betrayal. This was someone trying to rewrite reality and punish me for exposing the truth. And if I didn't draw firm lines now, legal, emotional, financial. I'd be paying for his choices long after he moved on. That realization didn't heal me, but it gave me something solid to stand on. Control. The fallout didn't come all at once. It arrived in waves, each one uglier than the last. The first wave hit the moment I left the apartment with my boxes stacked in the back of his brother's car. I hadn't even finished unloading them at his place before my phone started vibrating nonstop. Missed calls, texts, unknown numbers, mutual friends demanding explanations I didn't owe anyone. I blocked him. I blocked her. That didn't stop it. The next morning, I went back to the apartment with his brother and cousin so I could get the rest of my things, what hadn't been destroyed. That was when I learned he'd already started rewriting the story. He posted vague messages online about escaping an abusive relationship and finally choosing real love. No names, no details, just enough implication to poison the well. People recognized the timeline. Messages started coming in. If she left you, you should respect her choice. You didn't have to embarrass them like that. Some things should stay private. I replied to one message, just one. He didn't leave. He lived with me while planning a wedding to my friend. The tone changed immediately. Oh, that's different. Wait, what? His brother suggested I post my own statement. Not emotional, not defensive, just facts. So I did. 4 years together. 2 years living together. Secret wedding planned behind my back. Discovered accidentally. I included proof of the lease. Both names, dates, no commentary. The comments exploded. Questions he couldn't answer. Contradictions he couldn't explain. His post disappeared within hours. Then came day 3. He showed up at my work. Security stopped him at the front desk. I'd warned them the night before. He called me from the lobby. I answered on speaker, my boss standing nearby. "You need to stop telling people lies about me," he said, voice tight. "I posted facts," I replied. "A timeline. Our lease." "You're ruining my life." "You did that when you decided to live a double one." He inhaled sharply. "You owe me." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "For what?" "You ruined the wedding, the venue, the dress. Thousands of dollars wasted because you showed up. You tried to marry someone else while living with me," I said evenly. "That isn't my responsibility." "I'll sue you," he snapped. "I'll take everything." "Good," I replied. "My lawyer will enjoy that." I hung up. My boss didn't say a word for a long moment. Then she offered to write a statement about his harassment without me even asking. By day 4, the entitlement escalated. The landlord called. "He hasn't paid rent," he said. I closed my eyes. "I paid my half." "I know," the landlord replied. "He's claiming you're responsible for the full amount." "For his half?" I asked. "Yes." "Why?" "He says you caused him financial hardship by exposing the wedding." I laughed. Sharp, incredulous. "That's creative." "I need the rest by the end of the week," the landlord said carefully. "If not, eviction proceedings begin, against both of you. Both names. On my record." My lawyer didn't hesitate. "Pay it," he said. "Then we document everything and pursue reimbursement." So I did. I paid his half of the rent. It hurt, financially and emotionally, but I wasn't letting his decisions follow me for years. The demand letter went out the next day. Unpaid rent, destroyed property, unauthorized lock change, harassment. I don't expect to see the money, but now it's permanent. Documented. By day 5, he tried again. A different number. "Look," he said, quieter now. "This got out of hand." "No," I replied. "You got caught." "She loves me," he insisted. "We're soulmates." "She knew about me." Silence. That was the answer. "Don't contact me again," I said. "Any further communication goes through lawyers." I blocked that number too. The strangest part? His family. They chose me. His brother let me stay as long as I needed. His cousin cooked dinner every night like it was nothing. They apologized, not for him, but for the damage he caused. I lost a boyfriend and a friend. But I gained something unexpected. People who believed me without hesitation. People who saw the truth and didn't flinch. The fallout was brutal. But it was clarifying. And it was almost over. 3 weeks later, I finally moved out for good. A small 1-bedroom closer to work. Nothing fancy. Fewer rooms. Fewer echoes. But it was mine. No shared lease. No hidden lies. Just quiet. The honest kind. His brother helped me move. So did his cousin. That part still feels unreal. I lost a boyfriend and a friend in the same week, yet somehow gained a support system I never expected. They carried boxes, argued about furniture placement, helped me build a space that felt safe again. The landlord let me off the lease early once everything was documented. No pushback. He'd seen enough. My ex refused to leave the apartment. Insisted it was his. Said he'd figure it out. He lasted 2 weeks. Then he missed another rent payment. Eviction proceedings started immediately. That's when he called me. Not crying, not apologizing, just tense, cornered. I need help, he said flatly. Just temporarily. I'll pay you back. You had 8 months to think about consequences, I replied. You chose not to. You're really going to let this happen? He snapped. I'll have nowhere to go. You made sure I had nowhere to stand, I said. We're even. He moved back in with his parents shortly after. The eviction went through. His mother texted me from his phone after I blocked him, accusing me of being vindictive for not covering his rent indefinitely. My lawyer responded. The messages stopped. The demand letter for the destroyed property and unpaid rent came back unanswered. His father's lawyer replied instead, no assets, no income, nothing to collect. Fine. It's documented. 2 weeks later, I ran into her at a coffee shop. Pure accident. I was in line, staring at the menu like my brain had forgotten how choices worked, when I heard my name behind me. Soft, hesitant. I turned. It was my friend. She looked smaller without the wedding glow. Tired. Like reality had finally caught up. Hey, she said. Hey. Silence stretched between us. Look, she said finally. I'm sorry about everything. It was messed up. Yes, I said, it was. She swallowed. He told me you two were basically over. That you were just roommates. Financially tied. That it was an arrangement. That you were both seeing other people. I stared at her. We had date nights twice a week, I said calmly. He came with me to my company holiday party. We met each other's families. What part of that sounds like roommates? Her face tightened. I didn't know it was like that, she said quietly. You knew I existed, I replied, and you still chose to stand up there. She didn't deny it. I was stupid, she whispered. Yes, I said, not cruel, just honest. She nodded once and stepped out of line without ordering. I watched her leave and felt something unexpected. Nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just confirmation. His family, though, they stayed. They invited me to dinners, helped me furnish my place. His mother even sent homemade cookies with a note apologizing for not seeing through the lies sooner. Ironically, my own family told me I'd made a scene, that I should have handled it privately, because apparently being secretly replaced is something women are expected to tolerate quietly. I didn't. Where I am now, better. Not perfect, but solid. Work is good. My boss gave me a raise. Unrelated, she said, but well-timed. Therapy starts next week. I'm not dating. Deleted the apps his brother helped me set up. Not ready. The strangest part? I don't miss him. I thought I would, but mostly I feel relief, like I stepped out of the path of something much worse. If someone can lie for 8 months while sharing a home with you, that isn't love. That's practice for lifelong deception. People asked if I regret objecting at the wedding. No. They were about to build a marriage on a lie. Everyone deserved the truth. And after months of being manipulated, honesty felt powerful. To everyone who offered support, thank you, truly. Being told I wasn't crazy mattered more than you know. And to anyone living a version of this story, silence doesn't protect you. It protects the lie. I didn't ruin anything. I just refused to carry secrets that were never mine. And that was the moment my real life finally began. And if you're listening to this while recognizing pieces of your own life in it, this part is for you. Pay attention to patterns, not promises. Watch how someone behaves when honesty costs them something. And remember, choosing yourself doesn't mean you destroyed anything. It means you stopped participating in a lie. If this story resonated with you, feel free to leave a comment below. Share your experience if you're comfortable, or just let someone else know they're not alone. And if you want to hear more stories like this about boundaries, betrayal, and rebuilding after the truth comes out, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for listening. And if there's one lesson I'm taking with me, it's this. Some endings hurt, but they also make space for the life you were never going to have with the wrong people. I'm choosing that life now.